Hey, everybody. Thank you for tuning in to this new episode of The Basement. I'm joined by some returning members and then some fresh, brand new faces. To my immediate left, we have Mr. Sergio. Hello, sir. Thank you for coming.
Good to be here.
Next, I have my Auntie Janice over here. And then we have our returning cast members. We have Mr. Robert.
Hey, guys.
And then we have Mrs. Elvira all the way opposite to me.
Good evening.
First of all, thank you guys all for being on this episode. Today we're going to be talking specifically about that which I cannot give my experiences on. It's about raising kids, being a parent, being a father, being a mother, and everything that just kind of comes with it, whether it's the good, the joyful, or the sad. Everything. So I guess we'll just start. How many kids do you guys have?
I have 2.
I have 3.
I also have 2.
I have 2, boy and a girl.
Okay. I guess just kind of throwing it out there. What was your initial approach to parenting? Like when you first realized, hey, I'm gonna have a child. What was your initial what did you have to change about your lifestyle when you found out that you were having kids?
Looking back, I don't, I think a lot of people will agree that you're just never really prepared for kids. And if I have to be honest, I would say the thoughts that were going through my head was, I got to do this right. I'm not going to mess up like that. And because that was my concern. I mean, if you're going to have a kid, how else can you go? But you got to do your best, right? So I can't mess this up. That was my approach. Now, that didn't really involve, you think about your kid, you want to raise them up, they're going to do well in school, whatever. I don't even think I was thinking about that, So when I first knew that I was going to have a kid, I remember I was talking to my boss because I had taken time out, but I was letting them know, I wanted my kid to be, like a decent, loving person, like good to other people and things like that. That was kind of going through my head. Nothing specific.
Well, my approach was just very simple. The first thing for me was, the first thought was, I don't want them to grow up the way I grew up. Whether that was being, my parents being very strict with me and telling me, X, Y, and Z because I say so. I didn't want to be that parent. That was my first thought. I don't want to be that parent. I want to be able to enjoy my kids and tell them this. Everything the opposite that I thought of the way my parents raised me, I wanted to do the whole opposite.
I freaked out. I was in disbelief. I was in shock. I was sharing earlier. I wasn't good with kids. I didn't want kids. So I don't think I had a plan. I think that as it came along, then I started figuring out what type of father I wanted to be. But I don't think initially I said, okay, I'm going to be a dad and, I'm going to go get these books and I'm going to read. No, I didn't do that. I was just like, what? Really? Okay. Now what do I do? And I think I was just in shock more than anything. And then I figured things out as I went along.
Okay. Well, for me, I always wanted kids. Always. From I was a little girl. I guess most girls think that way, right? No? I had all my children. I actually wanted 6 children. And I had all my kids' names since between age 15 to 20. I write their names out. When I got married, I wanted to have kids 2 years after I got married. I wanted to give time for us to know each other. And when that 2-year came, we fasted and prayed, and needless to say, after 3 months, nothing happened. And so you get a little bit disappointed, but finally it happened. And so I was prepared emotionally, socially, financially, That was a big thing for me, financially and spiritually.
That's kind of leads me into another question. How did you guys prepare financially? Because there's like everybody says it's like the most expensive thing. I've seen articles where, at least in California, you're supposed to be making at least 200,000 in order to stably raise a kid. How did you guys prepare for that financially? Because that's the big part.
For me, well, we rented a house, but we saved enough. We saved enough. Like in our country, you have to have a helper to be in your house, to stay in your house, to help with your kids. And so we knew if we had done extra money now, we had to pay a living helper. So you have to prepare for that. But I wanted all the alleys to be ready. So the financially, the socially, the spiritually, all of those alleys to be ready. And I bought books, child rearing books. And before we got married, my husband mandated that I should read Messages to Young People and Adventist Home. And I did that. That was a criteria to get married. His criteria. And so I tried following some of those principles. And then I read Child Guidance by Ellen White, which is a very heavy book. And so I was mentally ready, if I could say that.
No, it's like polar opposites here. Not financially ready, not emotionally ready. I was just off. But what I did do is I did seek for a lot of advice. So I have two older sisters who are extremely nurturing, and I relied on what I know, which is my family. I relied on them a lot, and on my mom, and just to say, okay, what do I do? What's the next step? And they actually helped me go through the whole process of what I'm supposed to do and whatnot. But yeah, financially, I don't think I was ready. But then again, I was just dumb.
I think I'm in the same boat as Robert here. I can't say that I ever wanted kids, honestly. If I'm being honest, I told myself I don't want to ever have kids. But once you have your kids, obviously, I love my children. They change you. But I wasn't financially ready. We weren't financially ready. But with the support of my in-laws and my immediate family, they helped me raise my kids as well. I wasn't prepared with books. I know a lot of young women now that when they're pregnant right away, here's the books and we're going to do all this way. No, I think I went more with the flow and see what happens, a brand new day to raising our kids. But in the beginning, I knew that I didn't want to raise my kids the way I was raised. I wanted them to be different, to have a better life, to have the things that I didn't have. And those were just a couple of my goals for them.
Okay, I actually, when we had our kids, we already had a house and we had been married already 5 years. And I've always wanted kids. That was always part of my life, but I didn't have their names all set up. I didn't plan it that much. I just knew I was going to have it. And I remember, I was already Adventist, and I was actually teaching juniors, right? And the mistake I made was I didn't really put a lot of emphasis on the kids' development. When the kids are small, they're different than when they're older. And I thought, I can talk to teenagers really well. I get along with them, So I thought, it's going to be like not easy, but I thought it was like I can be a parent. But I realized that there was a lot to learn. So I wasn't prepared. Even though maybe financially you're prepared. You want to have like a stable finances. We weren't in deep debt or anything like that at the time. And so, but I don't think I was, maybe it's emotional. Maybe it's another question you were going to ask, but emotionally is like a different sort of arena.
just to make note, it's interesting, and Elvira just whispered it to me. The prepared and the unprepared. Those that wanted kids and those that didn't want kids. I think that also has a lot to do with being prepared, because you know what you wanted. Where we were like, nah, that's not gonna happen. I'm not going down that route. But I don't think that takes away from how much we love our kids.
I'll tell you one thing I did is, as I remember praying. I remember I think Samuel's mom prayed for a child, and she promised God that if he was born, she was going to dedicate him to God. And that's one commitment I said, God, if you give me kids, I'll make sure to take them to church. I'll make sure that they get taught, not to say, oh, they're going to be a priest or a prophet, but still, I and like right away I started getting kids. I got 2 of them. I don't know if there's a connection there, but maybe not. Maybe there is.
Robert, you kind of mentioned that you got some advice from, I believe you had like older siblings. Was there anything from how your parents raised you guys that you saw that you implemented into your parenting, or did you speak to your parents at all for advice?
I did. My mom was always, her yeses were yeses and her nos were nos, period. She always gave us warnings when things were going to happen. Like, don't do this. I'm going to spank you. Told you, don't do it. Next time you do it, I'm going to spank you. If you did it a 3rd time, you weren't told. You were just spanked. And it was done. I remember very specifically the very first time I had to discipline Emily. We had a glass table, and underneath there was a little something in the bottom with trinkets. And she walked underneath, and I was sitting across my mom, and she's coming and she's trying to get these little trinkets. And I told her, don't. No, let's spank you. You don't do that. Te voy a pegar. So she left. A few minutes later, she comes back, tries it again. No, I'm going to spank you. She left. Mom turned around and looked at me, and she said, if you don't spank her the next time she comes, I'm going to. And I was like, I don't want to hit my kid. She put me on the spot. Emily she wasn't even a year old. And she was little. She walked early. And sure enough, like clockwork, boom, she comes back. She did it. My mom just gave me this look like,
Showtime.
you or me. And I'm like, okay. Mustered everything I had in me. Yeah, I remember. I can't forget it. And I just, te dije que no. And she bawled like there was no tomorrow. It was the end of the world for her. It broke my heart. But I learned. If I'm going to say something, I have to follow through. And that's something my mom did with us. So I implement that with my kids.
On the negative side, but also on the positive side, I mean, if you promise them something, you better deliver. Right?
Yeah. You said that you're doing this.
You have to do it no matter what, man. Sometimes at great cost, but whatever. Like, that's one thing I don't want to lose, my credibility with my kids. I can get all silly with them and, make them cringe left and right. But if I say something that I'm going to do, it has to happen. It's got to be like something catastrophic for it not to happen.
Did you get that from like your parents, or you just learned that?
That's just my thing that I came up with, and I just, it's just a principle that I have, that credibility is everything. Maybe I learned it from. I can't point to any specific thing, but I just figure, if you're gonna tell, like going online, if you're gonna tell them to do something and then you don't do it, then they're like, your word doesn't mean anything.
You okay, Dawson?
You mean
Peachy.
Okay, just making sure.
you mean being consistent? Is that what you're saying?
Well, yeah, like like if I say something, my word has to mean something. It doesn't have to mean something negative, but it has to mean something. And then that way they know what they see is what they get. They're not going to be guessing as to what I'm thinking,
No surprises.
Right. And we've all maybe we got that from our parents at one point or another, where they promised something or they forgot and they just flaked out or something. You're just like, oh, But I remember one time my dad had a lollipop, right? And we wanted like just to take a lick and stuff. He goes, he had no intention of sharing it with us. I'm kind of glad now, but she was like, just give me a second. And he did one of those like, because I can't give it to you now. It's I bit into it and we didn't want it. It looked really bad. But I was really disappointed in him because he said he was going to allow us to have some of that lollipop. Maybe that's where it comes from. I don't know. It just came to my mind.
Elvira, Auntie, anything you got from your parents?
Elvira said you wanted to be different, right, from your
Yeah,
parents?
yeah,
right?
no, I don't think that I wanted to be the opposite of what they did. I was never taught. I never heard my parents tell me, "I love you." I did not. I knew that I wanted to make that a change with my kids, and I make sure that I tell my kids, "I love you," every single time. And even now that they're older, they still tell me that. And that's one thing that I know that I needed to learn differently from what my parents taught me, as far as showing love. Because my mom was a homemaker and she was always busy, either cleaning the house, cooking, doing all the housework. So she didn't really spend too much time with us. It was like, okay, send the kids to school, feed them. Did you do your homework? Whether we said yes or no, I mean, it was just a question she would ask. My dad, the same thing. He'd be the worker, the breadwinner. He'd come home, expect food to be ready. Did the kids do their homework? Fine, whatever. And then go on to, watching TV, reading the newspaper. So I knew that those are the type of things that I wanted to change and be there for my kids, making sure that I was talking to them and making sure that they knew that I was there for them and not just a parent that disciplined and was a breadwinner and cleaned homes, things like that. No, I wanted to be the complete opposite.
That's nice.
So I wasn't raised with my parents. My mom died when I was 5 years old, almost 6. And so I had to go and live with my aunt and uncle. Oh, sorry. So I had to live with my aunt and my and her husband. So I grew up into a big home. By the time they brought me there were 15 of us in the home, right? So I was the youngest one. So I just went along with everybody. But as Elvira said, in those days, people didn't really hug their kids. It was just provision. They provide for you, they love you. Right, but I can't recall having any one of them hug me. I can't recall that as a child. You get spanking for basically everything, things that you don't even do. Right? I got so much spanking, like Pastor said today. I should have a limp for things that I didn't even do. Right? I fought a lot when I was a kid because my cousin was just a miserable soul. And so she pick fight all the time. And so she does things. And when my aunt says, who does it? She won't own it. So guess what? Everybody gets spanking. So after the spanking is over, I think I need to take my revenge. So I have to hit her. Then when I hit her, she screams out. Yeah. And then I go get another spanking because I hit her. So I decided in my mind, I would teach my kids and tell my kids why to do things, because I was only told to do things, but there was no why. So from my kids were young, if I would say, don't touch the stove because it burns, don't do this because X, Y, Z, and So I try to raise my kids differently. Now I have 3 kids, as I said before, and I have only one has ever been spanked. And you all can guess who that is.
I don't know. Nick.
Lucien and then Lejeune has never been spanked because they were very obedient. And if I say sit here, they sit. And if I said don't leave until mom comes, God was good. They just never left. They just sat there. Lejeune at one time at church, I was busy at church. I was Sabbath school superintendent, and I left it. That's in Jamaica, to sit in Sabbath school. And so I was very busy, and I asked somebody, can you just go get my daughter? And they came back and said, she says she's not coming because mom says she'll come and get her. And she just sat there. She wouldn't leave. So I was very blessed with her. But telling my children why was very important. Not just say, sit here. You give them the why of everything. So again, I get a lot of spanking. They never got spanking because I just didn't believe that you had to spank kids if they behaved. But I also believe that if you tell them why they need to do certain things, they will do it. Now, my second one, she tried me, and she realized it wasn't going to work, so she got herself together. But so yeah, I changed a lot of things from how I was raised. A lot of things. I wasn't raised with morning and evening worship, but with my children, they were raised. That was like, it wasn't an option. They knew morning and evening worship. They were accustomed going to church. They were accustomed going to prayer meeting, Sunday night meeting. It was just automatic that we did, and they fell in line. So I'm blessed, if I may say so. Becoming Adventist in my 20s is the best thing that ever happened to me, that I was able to raise my children in the Adventist faith.
What would you say is the greatest challenge you've had raising kids?
Anybody?
Anyone?
For me, the greatest challenge is making sure that the kids have the confidence to do what they need to do. I had a challenge with my kids in that they, especially with the COVID, they were not believing in themselves. They were starting to doubt themselves, and that was really scary because how do you convince them? Like I've always had the confidence in what I could do, but to have confidence in what another person can do, can they really, succeed and all this other stuff? And so inside my own head, I was just like very little worried. But man, with a lot of prayer, I mean, my kids are showing me that they just really are special kids, both of them. They're really showing me, and that's the humility of everything. They teach you a lot of things that you didn't know you could happen. And God has helped us so much. I mean, we pray together, we do a lot of things together, and God has to be part of our lives in order for them to realize what they can actually accomplish.
What was your question again?
What was the greatest challenge you've had raising kids?
Well, my biggest fear was I did not want them to be followers. I wanted them to be leaders. So I tried to tell them every day how wonderful they were, how smart they were. I really propped them up, right? And to tell them, because I realized that if you don't build your self-esteem in your kids, they can easily become followers. And I just didn't want my kids to be followers. I wanted them to be leaders. I hope I succeeded. But even my son, when he was little, he was like 2 years old, and I would say, "What does mommy want you to be?" And he would respond, "Be nice, be smart, and be a good black man." And And I would tell him that every day. I am serious. And by 2-year-old, he got it. And I said, what does mommy? And he repeats it. And we did that for quite a while because I didn't want them to be rambunctious, and I just didn't want my kids to be problem kids or at-risk kids. So that was my biggest fear. So I wanted to instill the fear of God in them, that people may hear me talk about it all the time, about this omnipresent God. I used to teach my kids that God sees them everywhere they go. So even when they are not in my presence, whatever they do, they don't have to report to me. They have to report to God. And I think I put the fear of God in them to let them know that don't worry about what mommy and daddy knows. It's about God, because you have to give account on that day. So I hope it worked. You can ask my son or my daughter.
I think so. At least for me, the biggest challenge I've encountered is realizing that what worked for one of my kid does not work for the other. And in turn, making sure that one doesn't feel left out when I am having to deal with the other. Because the girls are so different. They're so different. I love my girls, but they're night and day. And they require different kind of attention. And that to me is a big challenge. You know, what worked for Emily doesn't work for self. And the attention I have to give one, I can't give to the other. And my big thing is I don't want them to feel like, oh, you're always with her. Or I can't, because, right? That's, to me, the big challenge.
For me, I guess my biggest challenge was allowing society to help me raise my kids. And in that sense is that sometimes I would be scared to spank my kids. And Alex would tell me, my fear was, if I spank my kids, who are they going to tell? They're going to come and get me, and I'm going to get in trouble, because that's the way society was. And Alex would tell me, well, who's raising your kids, you or society? And it's like, you're right. I'm going to spank my kids because they did something wrong and they didn't listen the first time or the second time. And I think that was my biggest challenge, and not allowing the world to dictate how I should raise my kid. Nowadays you see, kids yelling at their parents. Are you going to allow your kids to yell at you? No. Guess what? Are you going to allow your kids to tell you what to do when you've already told them and they're going to tell you no? I was seeing that so much, and I feared, and that was my challenge, allowing my kids to see that and try to mimic what those kids were doing and trying to bring it into my home. But it wasn't going to happen.
Is there anything you would have changed raising your kids?
Definitely.
What?
Well, for my first son, I don't know. I think it's a thing, right? For your first kid, you just treat them like they're made out of like they're like golden, and I think it backfired because I think we overstimulate the poor kid. Like we're always trying to make them happy and laughing, and poor kid. And so but how do you do that? You have this little precious thing, It's your whole world. It becomes your whole world, when you have your first baby. And all I could want to do is just protect it and make sure it was okay. And, it's like, I don't know. If I knew what to do, and I'm not even sure I know what to do now, but if I knew what to do, maybe I would just be a little bit more chill about, letting them. One time Robert told me, let your kids play. I was like, yeah, okay. Thank you, Robert. And I'm glad I listened to him because my kids were having fun. And I was like, all right, let's go home. And Robert just kind of looked at me like, let the kids play. I was like, yeah, I should let the kids play. But, that's the kind of thing that...
Just to clarify, I just didn't want them to leave. I figured they're having a good time at church. They're good.
It was right on. You said exactly the way it should have been said, and in the end, my kids benefit. So thank you. I say it here in public.
In the end, I don't think that any parent knows what they're doing. I'm still learning. My kids are, almost getting, 25 and almost getting to the 30s, and I'm still learning. I'm still, learning on what do I do at this age? How do I, still be their mom, but not telling them exactly what to do? They're adults. We're still all learning. And, like Robert said, they're completely different, especially if you have a boy and a girl. You got to treat it differently. You can't treat one and try to raise them one way and try to raise the second one the same way. Right. It just doesn't work. But it's completely different with a boy and a girl. It's different things that have to go with that. So I think we never stop learning.
Right. But one thing I don't regret is listening to other people. Like if they're telling me something, like listen to them because they see things from a different perspective. Like you can be in this bubble where you got to protect your kid or, nobody can do anything to them and this and that. But the reality is they gotta live in the world and they're gonna have to live on their own and they have to figure out how to figure out things.
To navigate things.
Yeah. And so to a certain extent, they do have to be sort of battle tested to a certain extent. And if you're just always shielding them and covering them, that's not gonna help them in the long run.
Sorry.
No, go ahead.
To the question that Dawson, what one thing I would want to change is I wish I could have taught my kids a little bit more of a responsibility, labor work for what you want, not just get it. Because I was in that mode of I want to give my kids everything I didn't have. I didn't have. I think about it, and we never went to restaurants. We never went to even McDonald's. McDonald's was a treat once in a while. I didn't have, the latest shoes or anything like that. It was just the very minimal, which was great. Mm-hmm. But, I didn't want my kids because I knew I could provide for them a lot more. So that's one thing I would change is have them earn what they want and learn that it takes a hard work for that one thing that they want. And do they really want it in the end? It's like, no, I worked too hard for this. I don't want that. I want, something better, something more. So that's what I would change.
For me, it's funny because it brings to mind, I remember when I was a new dad, right? People would tell me, enjoy the time.
Yes.
Because they grow up so fast.
Very fast.
Yeah. They need to hurry up and walk and feed themselves on their own.
Right.
And move on.
Hurry up.
Right. Your mindset at the time is like, it's like so much effort.
When does this phase move on?
So for me, what I would change, and I think this is me being more selfish, is I would slow down and enjoy the moments.
Definitely.
For example, we were going through photo albums with Nancy the other day, and you see, here everybody's right there around the cake, and we're taking pictures, and I could see it. Like I remember that day, I didn't eat. I was so tired because I was up on the roof holding the piñata, and then I had to go do this and I had to go do that, and I didn't enjoy any of it. I didn't enjoy that time with my girls. I would slow down and say, okay, you know what? Somebody else could do that. And I wouldn't, to me, that's what I would change. I wouldn't change and enjoy more of the time with my kid.
Yeah.
I completely agree with you, Robert.
Right?
I wish I would have. I think about that exactly, that I wish I would have taken more time. Even though I did stay with them the first 5 years of each of them, I was able to stay home with them. But even that was not enough.
Right.
That was like, boom.
Go. We got to do this. We got to do that.
Yeah. Next thing you know, I'm already in the workforce. I'm back at work and everything. And it's like exactly what he says. Like, I remember that picture. Why am I not in that picture to begin with?
There you go.
So I totally agree with you guys. And even if you do spend time with them, the time still goes by so fast, and you just wish you could just go back in time. But we took a lot of pictures. I used to take my kids when it was my turn to pick them up from daycare. I would take them to Parnell Park, especially in the summer because it would get dark later on. Let them play on the swings and stuff like that. Sometimes we would pass by McDonald's and grab some food, and just so they could have some food. And those are times were so precious. And I asked the kids, "Do you remember when I said, yes, I do." Oh, so that's something I don't regret. But I'll tell you what, right now, on the Sabbaths, when I spend time with them, when I get to sit in the pews with them, I could put my arm around them, and I love that time with them. Vicky talks to me a lot, like, when things are going on, and she knows all the songs, of course, and she likes to find the hymn really quick and see who could find them quicker, or go to the Bible and see who, when there's a scripture. But I just like being with them. I like being next to them. Even on the drive over there, I have their undivided attention, and I could be as silly as I want to, and they have to hear me. But I get to spend time with them, and I just really love. And another reason why I love the Sabbath, I get to spend time with my kids.
Best day ever. I know you're gonna ask me, but I'm thinking, and I guess it's the whole thing about time, right? I mean, I worked nights for 20 odd years. Coming to this country was brutal, I should say. It's not a bed of roses coming to America as an immigrant, although people think that, you're here. Because you don't have, like I said before, you have a helper in your home back in Jamaica. So you have a living helper. So when you come from work, your dinner is cooked, your kid is all taken care of.
Sounds pretty nice.
Yes,
Nice.
very nice. Wow.
No, it's the truth, right? I mean,
I have a nanny, maid.
Yeah. So coming here, it's emotional, but I'm gonna try relax because like Lejeune and Denique, we have you contract with a taxi driver. They come and they pick up your kid at home. They take you have a relationship with this person. So he picks up your kid, take them to school, bring them back. You have the helper at home. So when the kid comes home, there's somebody there. When I came here, it was a new world. Interestingly, the first day we got here, came to the apartment, Lejeune asked a question. She says, "Mom, so where is the helper going to stay? Because I only see 2 rooms."
Wow.
And I ran into my room and started hollering. I was like, did I make the right decision to be here? And, we got to do our own laundry. We got to do this, got to do that. And
Welcome to America.
I'm being honest with you, it was very difficult. I remember she asked me, how come as I leave your room, I'm in my room? I mean, she come from a 4-bedroom, a veranda around the house, and she ride her bicycle. It's like, and so that was hard for me, right? That was very hard for me. My husband had come to go to school here. And so those are the things that was hard for me. So time, I'm working nights, so I come in, they're gone to school. And when I come from school, I have to pick them up, take them swimming, doing it by yourself, right? And that's just the hard part that I found initially, not having the help that I would have and the time that I would love to spend with them. And so, yes, they grow along, and here comes a son that, I didn't fast it for him, but I always wanted him, so he's a blessing. So we didn't plan for a child because there was a different plan. It was a 5-year plan, and we're going to go back home, but it didn't work out. So that's the thing that I would say I had a hard time dealing with, coming home, doing so much housework and not having the time to sit with them, and having to drive to pick up my husband from the bus stop, and I'm trying to do homework with them and trying to have Denique spell while I'm driving. It was a rough time, she's 4 or 5, and but one of the good things for me, I made a vow. Before I had kids, I was in church and I saw those Pathfinder marching down. And I said, Lord, if you ever give me children, they're going to be Pathfinders. And I made that pledge, and they were all Pathfinders.
Yeah.
So that is, and it's a good thing. I think they really learned a lot from that. But that's the only thing. It was a time just coming from work, having to get a little sleep, the days of 2 hours sleep. And Dawson, you probably were younger, but this church used to have a lot of activities in the afternoon, remember?
I remember.
Right. And so a lot of those activities I would miss because I had to go work at 7 o'clock. So I leave them to be taken care of by other church members. Not that they minded, but I wish that I was there. And so as you talk about the pictures, I miss those things. Vincent would take pictures and send to me, and that's the one thing. But they said, Mom, you did the best you could. You did what you had to do. And so that gives me closure that they have not held that against me, because they grew up and understood that I was the main breadwinner. Dad was in school and, for a while. And so I had to push. My first daughter, I don't think Lucian knows a lot about what I did, but the two older ones knew that what I was doing was for the benefit of them, and going to a Christian school and all that stuff, it's a lot of work, right? Trying to pay a mortgage and all these bills, right? So that's the only thing. If I could spend that more time with when they were young.
I have a question here, actually from my friend Gabe. He asks, how do you balance being a friend versus being a parent?
I will answer that. I was never a friend with my kids when they were young. There was a demarcation. I am mother, you are children. If God wanted you to be to be the parent, he would have done it. So rules are rules. We play, we have fun time when we go, one thing I always do, make sure we go on vacation. Every summer, after summer school, we went somewhere. It didn't matter. We have to find somewhere to go with the kids. But now they are my friends. Like I would say, Lejeune is my best friend. I can start talk and she can finish my sentence. Right? We spend a lot of time together. So as children are children. And again, according to age group. According to your age group. One of the things that I did as a parent, because I was never allowed to speak up much when I was a child, and I get spanking for speaking up. I had family meetings with my children from they were like 5. And so what we did, we sit together and you would say what you like about dad, what you didn't like about dad, what you like about mom, what you didn't like about mom, and what you like about your sister, each other. And so who could not write, we write it for them. As they got older, they were able to write what they have. And we all read it and looked it over. And the thing was, it's no blame, no shame. So if you write something bad about me, I had to look into it and realize, what do I need to change about myself? Did you get that? Right. And so I'll tell you a quick story. One day, one family meeting, Lejeune says, Mom, when you come home in the morning, you're so grumpy. And that hit me like a ton of bricks. I was like, no, I am not coming back in this house in no bad mood. I got to change that. But that family meeting helped. And even now, anyone can call a family meeting. Any of the kids can say, hey, we need to have a family meeting and we can discuss X, Y, Z. I enjoyed that. Yeah, so that's just a little tidbit. I don't know how I came up with it, but it worked. Robert, looking at me.
They're not my friends. They're my daughters. And I think, not to say that I don't allow them to be able to speak their mind, but I think that it's important to keep that respect, that line that respects. Like, look, I'm your dad and you don't have to like me. And I do things not because I want to. I do things because I have to, and it's the best for you. And they need to understand that. I'm doing it not because I'm trying to be mean. I'm not doing things because I want to earn brownie points, because I want to be the fit. No, nothing to do that. I'm telling you to do or say or act or dress a certain way because it's the best thing for you. When you're older and you think different, that's fine. But right now, this is what you're doing. Period. In my house. Drop the mic.
No, definitely. I think that some people might misinterpret being a friend and being a parent. But I was always told, well, you're talking to them as if you're their friend. No, I'm talking to them so they know that they have somebody to talk to. But I know of the fine line between being able to talk to them and where my role as a parent comes in, because you don't want to lose that trust. You want your kids to be able to talk to you about anything. And I think that that's where the misinterpretation is about, oh, well, my parent is my friend. Well, I mean, there are some parents that take it literal and they're friends and they know where they draw the line. Okay, now I'm your parent, but that shouldn't be the case. But you should be able to speak to your kids in a manner that they can be heard, because they are human beings. You don't want for them to grow up knowing that they can't speak for themselves, or they can't think for themselves either, because you never gave them that chance to be able to learn from their mistakes. That when they make a mistake, oh, that's it. My parents are gonna yell at me and scream at me. No, you have to be able to talk to them when those mistakes come. That you're in a calm way. You speak to them as a human being and tell them where they went wrong, what you expect from them as a parent, and let them know, let's move on. I'm your parent. Here's your punishment now, or whatever it is.
Okay, so I know this is kind of a cliche, but I'm very big on boundaries. If I am about honesty, I am about communication, but the kids cannot cross those boundaries. I try to think about, what are the big goals. I want my kids to enjoy coming to church. I want them to enjoy being with me. But if they cross the boundaries, if they're disrespectful, I call them out. I haven't done the spanking thing for a while. And I kind of, like, for me, it never really worked. I think I've been more successful in being able to kind of talk to them and to convince them of a way of being. But right now my kids are becoming, like, they're getting closer to being teenagers, and they're testing the waters right now. So along the lines of boundaries, I'll zap them. Either I'll out intensify them, or just, like, just so they can know, hey, you crossed the line, and they know that what they did is serious. If we can be respectful, there's no need to like discipline them if they're doing everything right. And the kids are really great. I mean, they're doing really well in school right now. They're coming with me to church. I don't have to, like, drag them over here. They come voluntarily, and so, and I don't even know if I can give myself credit other than the fact that they just see the example. I'm up before they are. I'm, like, ready to go. And then, and I jokingly tell, all right, let's go. It's time to go. Let's go. But almost like smiling, laughing, but still at the same time, getting them up and getting them ready. Once they're up and ready, they'll get themselves ready, and then we'll get going. So, being their friend, I'm comfortable being their friend, if you want to put a label on it, but they cannot pass a boundary. And I think I may be tested. I'm going into that place where they're going to start testing me. Because I want the kid shall remain nameless, but one of them just started to roll their eyes and start acting like, I go, no way. And I just stopped everything. The whole world just stopped. And I just said, you don't talk to me like that. You don't give me those faces. I don't do that to you. You shouldn't do that to me. So it's not either you're a friend or not. There's like some leeway to a certain point. If there's disrespect, and I don't want to disrespect them. Sometimes I even joke around to them, because I said so, and then I'll kind of laugh, because they know I better have a good, and I expect that for myself. I better have a good explanation, like what you were saying. They should know why something's happening. Yeah. It's really important. And so I'll explain it. Sometimes I over explain, but they're like, okay, Dad, okay. But anyways, I can't really define it like either friendship or their parents.
Yeah, that's what I was talking about
Yeah.
in that sense. If there's not, you can't label it. Okay, I'm your friend right now. Let's be friends. No, it's the way that you communicate with them, that they feel like they are your friend, but they know that boundary, that but they're still my parent, but they're talking to me in that respect.
Right.
In
And
other
they-
words,
and they
that's
know
the
what the
that's the key word
expectations
is
are.
respect.
Right.
You have respect for them, and they'll respect you as a parent in teaching them what you want them to learn.
Uh-huh. Right.
So that's why it depends on the age group.
Yes, that
Yeah,
too.
definitely.
It's your age
Yeah.
group, because at 4 and 5, I'm not your friend. We're not playing. We're not playing
Well,
marbles
yeah.
together.
But
Right?
the funny thing is that there'll be a kid that's just doing everything like they're not even a problem, and then another
Right.
one might be completely the
Different.
opposite.
They
So
all
that-
are. They
So
have
how
their
are you
own
gonna like?
personalities.
And so yeah. So you're gonna. It might seem like you're being more friendly to one person, but that person's just not. They're not making your
Right.
life.
But Robert said it earlier. His two daughters are too different.
Right.
My kids, I mean, 2 daughters, they were night and day. And so you have to learn your children's personality to see how you can treat them based upon their personality.
By getting to know them, by
Know
taking the
them.
time to get to know them, and that's what
Yes.
parents
Oh, yeah.
aren't doing right now, is getting to know their children and their own characters and their own personalities. They're not. They're just trying to raise them as best as, okay, I'm gonna treat them all the same way, but they're not.
Because there's such a busyness with many families nowadays, right? Everybody is rushing here, rushing there. But again, we all talked about it earlier. It's a time. No matter what happened, we still have to find that time for our kids, whether it's each night or whether it's at a certain weekend or whatever it is. But again, friends depends on the age. By the time you're a teenager, I was telling somebody today that the beautiful thing about your kids when they grow up now, you talk to them in their 20s, 30s, like your
a
own
friend.
like-
Exactly. Yeah, I'm in that stage
like
right
your
now.
friend. You can talk about anything.
Not you,
So it
yeah.
depends
Not
on the
yet.
age. When they're young,
Yeah,
growing up, you have to raise them with the
But
boundaries.
you have to build that
I
relationship.
have that
though.
relationship right now with my mom. Like we're friends.
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly.
There you go.
You know,
Yeah.
like
It
we
matters
talk
on
about
the
stuff.
age.
Yeah.
So it just depends on the age group,
But
and
there was
it
a time when.
also is consistency. And I know for my kids, when I say no, there's no negotiation. That was something. We're not negotiating. Can I go here?
Reaction.
You'll get there.
There is.
I negotiate backwards.
Well, I mean, I think after a while they understood. Like I said, I had one child who would try to challenge me. This is what you do, and you're like, well, let me see if I do it, what's going to happen. But you have to be consistent in whatever
Right.
punishment or praise that you're going to give, so that the child will understand. Mom says, no, I won't call any name. I had one kid, Dawson, probably you guys grew up. Everybody knows where I sit in church, and I sit there just because when I came here, Lucien was 2. It was easy to slide outside. I wasn't a mother room person, so I sit there. And so this individual decided one Sabbath to sit with some friends. Now the rule was in our family, we sit together. You don't sit with friends. That was the rule. But this individual decided that they would go to sit elsewhere, and kept looking with her side eye to see if I was seeing her. She knew what she was doing. So at the end of church, the older one walked over and said, are you going to apologize to Mom?
Yeah.
And so she did that. So again, it's knowing the boundaries, right? Won't call in a name. One child said to me, oh, I can call the police. And another child said, get in here. And the other child went in. I don't know what was said to that individual that went in the room, but the other child came out apologizing to me. Mom, I'm so sorry. I will never say that again. So again, when you set your standard, each of these children know it. Yeah, set your boundaries.
I have a very good question from one of my friends, Lawrence. They ask, what have you seen as a big issue with families and today's society?
You said it earlier.
Letting them do whatever they want and not
Wait.
parenting. Parents aren't parenting anymore.
Yeah.
Well, I think it's like the outside influences, you know.
Exactly.
They're out in the world.
Are you gonna
They're
let
hearing
society
things.
raise
They're
your
seeing.
kids?
They're seeing things in the media, and they're, you know, and it's so important for them to know where you stand on things. It's really, really important. I don't know how else to phrase it, but because right now they're being influenced in so many different ways for a lot of different reasons.
Social media,
media
school,
is the
friends,
They
every
can even
every
be
which way.
They're influenced under the guise that this is the right thing to do and this and that, when they could be total fraudulent, totally against all the principles that you stand for. And you know, and so I make they know where I stand on a lot of things, you know, within reason, obviously, but they're very clear. But that is a challenge, competing, like you as a parent competing with all the different forces that are trying to get into our kids' heads, you know.
But it's again, it's other parents not being parents, because then your kids will see, well, my friend's parents let him do this and do that and stay
What's that
up
got to
all
do with it?
night
I
and
did that.
not have curfew and be out on the streets until who knows, you know, that those are the influences. Other kids their age and
true.
what parents aren't teaching those kids.
I think that it's people are afraid to stand up for what is right. This whole cancel culture cancel thing going on, it's ridiculous, and it backfires because these kids think, well, you're not cool, Dad, you just don't understand. That's not the way we think anymore. No, mija, that's just not the way it is. And let me break it down to you. And then I think that's when you really need to step up your education to your kids about what life is really like, and what you are really going to accept, and what does that mean when you accept certain things. And it's really, I think at this point it really becomes a parent has the guts to stand up and say, no, this is not the way it is. I think that's big.
But it's also us as parents to see what's going on out there, making sure that we know what's happening around our kids' lives, and being one step ahead and saying, because like you just said right now, oh, Dad, we're not doing that anymore. It's like, you don't understand. No, guess what? I do understand, because I see it, or I know it, because, you know, a lot of parents, you know, the new technology, wow, I don't know that TikTok or this and the whatever they're seeing, you want to go ahead and be part of that too, because that way you know what your kids are doing as well. Don't be afraid to see what your kids are what's out there in their age group. You know, all this social media and the new apps and things like that. You know, you need to try to catch up with that, because you need to try to educate yourself so that you can tell your kids no.
And just keep in mind that, you know, there are biblical principles that have stood the test of time and will continue to stand the test of time, and so I really rely on that a lot to, you know, teach my kids things, and then they see it in reality. You know, they see it in reality. Like even just talking about, you know, do you have an idol? No, I don't have a little figurine. Yeah, but you have this thing that you spend so much time on, and if there was even a threat of being taken away, it would just destroy your whole life. Don't make that your idol. So the Bible still is relevant, you know, even though they didn't have cell phones back then.
Good. I'm glad you said that, because I think that is where for those in the church, Those who were not in the church has different guide. But for those of us who are in the church, it's using the Bible as a tool to raise our kid. I would always try to quote scriptures in the way that they can understand it. And there's someone who will remain nameless. Once
You say that a lot.
They're all different kids, right?
kids,
They're
right.
all
All
a different
different kids.
person
my
every
my
time.
last child, we were coming from school, and something happened because I would ask them after school. One of the things that I would ask my kids when I pick them up, is there anything you learned today at school you heard that you didn't understand and you want some clarification? Because especially on the line of sex, I never wanted my kids to learn that outside. I wanted them, so at age 7,
To learn it
to
from you.
from age 7, I would sit them down and talk to them. And I'm not talking about no birds and bees and all that stuff. And so one of my child was correcting him, and he says, "Well, Mom, does everything have to be from the Bible and have to be a sermon?" I said, "Yes, that's the only book that I know." So you have to use biblical terms for those of us who are in the church, and make it applicable, right? You talk about idols. You can use it that their cellular phone can become an idol. Now, the challenge is that I never had, or that the new parents have now, is a cellular phone, because computer came in like, what, in the 80s, late 80s, and then you used to have parental control, right? I don't know if you can have parental control on the phones anymore. So
Yes,
that's
you do.
Yes,
Yes,
you
you
do.
can.
Okay, so but there's so many things that kids can go
grab it and
in and look at, But it's the social media that is killing people. What is also happening is wanting to be accepted, right? Kids are not accepting themselves as individual. So what they see on TikTok or who they see dressed a certain way, and parents are not able to guide them in that direction. And now we have a world where right is wrong and wrong is right, and so I pray. I definitely pray for all the young people with children, because I know it's difficult. I see the kids who are committing suicide, and we see kids are, not wanting to come to church, and it's a challenge. It's a very challenge. I know your mom never had problem with you guys coming to church, right, Dawson?
Yeah. Good job.
Right. I mean, I never had. My kids would get dressed and they're ready, to go. So, I mean, your kids too. So I know the parents now are really having a big challenge to raise their kids.
Do you think? So I'm going to ask a question. You said you didn't have challenge bringing your kids to church, and your mom didn't either. I don't think I have much of a challenge bringing my girls to church. I don't know about yours, and I don't know about yours, but at least in my house, we're going to church. You don't have an option to stay home. There's no option. So I don't know if we give our kids too many options now. You think that's it?
I think that when it comes to, if you're talking about coming to church, I don't think that they have an option. I'm in the stage where, I was able to bring my kids to church. And then once they became adults, now it's hard. It's really hard because they're on their own, and it's hard to tell them, you can't tell them, oh, you better get ready, we're going to go to church. They're not
adults.
at that age.
Well, yeah, they're adults.
They're adults. So now the only thing you can do is instill it in them. But
There's
it is a
been-
challenge, but I think that level where I'm experiencing myself right now.
There's been times when I've given them, sometimes when you could just tell that they just do not want, either they're not really feeling it well, or they're just, something's just up, or I just can't go. I'm like, okay, this is a rare thing, but I will let them stay home. And I'll tell you why I know that because I have always told them, I want you guys to want to come to church. I want you to want to come in. If I'm forcing you, I feel like at some point, as soon as you get your freedom, you're going to say, My freedom, I define my freedom as not having to go to church. I would hate for that to happen. And let me tell you, man, I think, I think when Jesus, got baptized, and then the Spirit came and said, "Oh, this is my son that I'm pleased with," right? I felt that way about my daughter today. I'm pleased with her because she wasn't feeling well this morning, but she knew she had to. She had that appointment to come and do the special, and in order to sort of preserve her voice, we didn't practice a lot. And not until this morning when we went there, we went through the song like 3 times, and that was it. And just to kind of coordinate, okay, you're gonna pause here, and then we're gonna continue and this and that. But she came out of completely voluntary. She never even complained or said she said she wasn't feeling good, but you could see it in her eyes. She was gonna come over here and do what she said she was gonna do. And so that tells me, okay, I felt so, that was part of it, the fact that she wasn't feeling 100%, but she still came and she sang through it. And she did it, she wanted to glorify God.
I think that if you instill that, just not giving them a choice, but to talk to them and say, hey, you know what, you're going to learn something, or we got to be there as a family. I think that for me as an example, I remember when we were going to church, I was 12 years old, and we were going to Pentecostal church. I remember being forced to go. You're going to follow me. My parents were the kind of people that you're going to follow me because I say so. You're going to do this because I say so, no reasoning. Like, you're going to do it because it's beneficial to you, because you're going to learn, nothing like that. It was always, you're going to go with me because I tell you to. So I was forced to go, and I hated it. I didn't want anything to do with God. I was there, and I was going to be disruptive as best as I could. It was at the time that I got a little bit older that my mom would stop telling me to go, and she would just, you're going to go. Okay, fine. You don't want to go? Okay, fine. We're leaving. Bye. And they would leave, and I was like, oh, okay, cool. I don't have to go to church today. But it started to dawn on me that now I have the choice to go. And I started to go by the time I was 15, I started to go because I wanted to go. I even joined the choir there and things like that because it was my choice. So I think that when you force them to a point where you're telling them we're gonna go, I think that instills something in them that they don't want to. They always want to do the opposite. Because anytime my parents made me want to do something, told me I couldn't do something, I always wanted to do the opposite.
And not to say that there weren't times when they didn't want to go, and I told them, no, you got to go. No, sorry. You got to feel it. You know your kids.
There's
your kids. When they're just playing you, and when they're really like this is not going to work, and you're like, okay, I'll give you this one.
and then it all has to do as well with age.
Yeah.
Yes. If you're 8 years old and you say, I don't want to go to church,
you take them.
Wrong answer.
Wrong. Yeah.
When you're 21, I don't want to go to church. I guess you're not going to go to church.
Exactly.
That's you. But I think that's a difference. You look a little sad, bro. You all right?
It's just.
What about your experience? I mean, you as a young adult. I mean, we're talking about teenagers, and what was your experience? If we can throw that question at you.
As far as like
having to come to church, did your parents have to bring you? How did they?
So it was, for me, it was more of like there was a point where I want to say that they started letting me make decisions for myself, and they would pull the reins back every now and then, like, no, you have to do this because this is why. If I'm gonna be honest with you, I probably, there was some days where I didn't want to go, but I went just because I didn't want to get beat. So there's also that. But yeah,
So I was going to ask you, how much of it coming to church, how much did your friends play into you coming to church?
Most of my friends didn't go to church. So I think that was something that that my parents instilled in me from a very young age, is that no matter what your friends do, you have to make decisions for yourself. And, if your friends I'm sure you guys have said this at some point. If your friends jump off a bridge, are you going to jump off that bridge? Or are you going to think, you know? So, yeah. So it was more of that. I knew I had to go. I had friends here, you know, but I knew I had to go because there was something more than just, you know, oh, I have to wake up early on Saturday and I have to please my parents. You know, they always told me that church was like more for like your personal, like your spiritual health. You know, you come here to learn about God because God loves you, so you should learn about God. As simple as that.
Any other questions, bro?
Well, we're actually going to wrap up. But if you could describe with just one word parenting, raising kids, what would that one word be?
Forever learning.
Blessing.
Yeah.
I don't even want one word.
Hey, that's hard, man.
Awesome,
It could-
scary.
it
Is that
could-
one word?
That's weird.
Scary, awesome.
You do a compound word.
It's challenging. It's a challenge, man. It's
a blessing.
every time, every situation is different, and it's a
Look,
blessing.
there's so much at
It's
stake,
learning.
right? These are our kids, man.
Yeah.
We
There's
can't
nothing
just
we
give them
wouldn't
to
do for
somebody
them.
else.
'Cause
These
you
are
want them-
our kids.
But you know
There's
what?
nothing we wouldn't do for them.
Let me tell you guys something.
You can't pass
I
the
grew
buck.
up Bell Gardens. We didn't have a lot. Single mom, 3 kids. She's an immigrant. She didn't know the language. We didn't have the fancy shoes. We didn't have fancy clothes. Small apartment. Shared a house. Even then, sometimes with other people because we had to make ends meet. Did the food bank stuff. Name it, we did it.
Mm-hmm.
But I had a happy childhood. I love my mom. She did an awesome job. I know she wasn't perfect. Did I want to change some stuff? Maybe. But I think she did a great job. I really believe it. And I think sometimes as parents, we are harder on ourselves than we should be. Because I hear from my mom, I'm so sorry, mijo, I didn't do it. So I'm like, Mom, you did a great job. What are you talking about? And so I think sometimes we are harder on ourselves as parents than we need to be. I think our kids realize where our hearts are, and they realize that we are doing the best we can, and
with what we have.
what circumstances we may have.
Mhm.
And I think they appreciate that in the long run. So I think we shouldn't.
Right.
be so
I
hard on
do
ourselves.
think that, yeah, like you're remembering your mom and how hard she worked, and that's what stays with us, right? That's what makes us want to be like them. If they can earn our like, if we are, like, say my mom has a lot of integrity, right?
Mhm.
And I see that and I want to be like that because I have respect for that, right? And so it's that. That's what makes you want to start emulating them when they set the example. So we have to love our kids, right? We have to love them, and in a sincere way, not just like a transactional way, but just love them and let them know. Part of love is explaining things. Part of love is giving, right? And giving and also expecting from them. Not lower your expectations. Not like like coddle them or helicopter them, but just let them get out there. Like trust them, and then they'll turn around and trust you. So you give them all the things, and they'll remember that, and it stays with them. And then they're gonna want to. If you're an honest person, they're gonna say, "Wow,
They can emulate
this
you.
is what I'm thinking. If I'm always honest and I always do what I say I'm gonna do, they're gonna say later on, well, Dad was always honest with me and he told me blah blah blah. And that's what the test is when they're by themselves and you're not around to like tell them what they're supposed to do. And they're like, oh, my dad. That's what I'm hoping. And so that's why I'm trying to set the example for them, so that they can have something that they could hold on to when there's nobody around.
If I can elaborate on what Robert was saying as far as being brought up in a very small home with, sharing one room with like 6 people. I always saw my parents as the working and, the household. And I never saw that love or anything. But growing up and now as an adult and as a parent, I look back and they raised us the best that they could at that time. And even though I grew up not appreciating my parents, I appreciate it now because I'm the person that I am now. I'm not out there doing other stuff, and I think I'm a good person, and I grew up with a good education, even though my parents never knew that and I still remember my dad would always want to check my homework. Let me see your math homework. He'd check it, and he looked like he knew what algebra was, but he took the time to see that everything was there. And I think about it now, and it's like, I appreciated that. And I feared him. But in a good way, that I still have that respect for them. When I go to their house, I am like, okay, yes, mom. Oh, can you bring me that? Yes, mom, I'll bring it to you right now. Can you help me with it? Yeah, there's still that respect, and I appreciate it because I see what the value that they brought to me, the morals that they brought to me, that the best that they could.
We're going to go ahead and close now. Thank you guys all for being here and for sharing your experiences and whatnot. Appreciate all of you. Robert, would you mind closing us out with prayer?
Sure. If you could join me, bow your head with me. Dear blessed Father, Lord, I thank you for this day, Lord. I thank you for this opportunity to come together, Lord, as believers to discuss matters that pertain to all of us, Lord. Maybe not all of us are parents, Lord, but one day we will be, Lord. I thank you, Lord, for being so patient with us, Lord. And I pray that our children, Lord, see this in the years to come. Thank you for everything that you do. In the name of your Son, Christ, I pray. Amen.
Amen.